is what you're made of. You are perfect and pure, even if you're not sure. It's what you're made of. L-O-V-E, love.
So it's interesting. I can't help but notice that what's inside of me in this moment and in the past couple of weeks in particular is a little bit of anxiousness, a little bit of wondering, a little tenacity, a little temerity, and a little tension, right? It does not surprise me that this is a morning where an hour of rehearsal and preparation and perfection of the lyrics in order, simply in the moment when we decide that we are courageous enough to tap into what's going on inside of us, into our feelings, into our open hearts, what ends up happening is sometimes the structure is a little off. Right now, for many of us, our lives feel just a tiny bit off. And I am not speaking specifically about the realm of politics. I'm speaking about the fact that right now, the earth is undergoing a very interesting and challenging shift. The earth itself and all of us on it, spinning through space, are right now moving into a place and time that is unknown. Now, every moment is unknown. The ride down here is obviously unknown to me when I come from Boston, or these days from Beverly, up on the North Shore. It's all an unknown. Life is an experiment. But what we do as human beings is we make a decision each day that somehow we're going to buy into the illusion that we have control. Somehow we buy into this illusion as we buy into every other illusion in life, every other thing advertised and marketed towards us and at us and for us. We buy in. We buy in for a reason so that we can get through the day. We can say, okay, I'm going to go to that service this morning. That'll give me something. I might even connect with somebody else in one of the pews and the chairs. That would be a good thing. But we have no idea what's on the other side of any of this. Neither did any of the parties headed towards Bethlehem. Maybe they heard a story. Maybe they saw a star. Maybe it is as poetic as many of us grew up with. Maybe not. Maybe they didn't see the star. Maybe one day the wise men, the wise women, every other shepherd and shepherdess in the fields just had a sense that even though they didn't know the answer, they were going to march on in a different direction towards one purpose. But I would bet if you actually interviewed, if NPR or CNN or any other less progressive group were on the ground as a reporter in the moment, and they turned to anyone who had felt that call, I don't think there were words to describe it. I'm just going to make that guess. And I don't have words day to day to describe where I'm coming from when I am seeking solace and I am seeking strength. However, I know a couple of things. I know that when I'm able to remember something that turns on that light of not only hope, but action, that light of goodness that allows me to look up. And this morning, for the first time driving into the parking lot, I looked up in a way I guess I hadn't before because I don't think it was added in the last few weeks. I saw the light, the little cupola, thank you, cupola, in the cupola. I had no idea there was a cupola. I've been coming to this church for a long time, and I had no idea that there was a light inside of that cupola. And I pretended in my mind that it was lit in that moment, and that light was emanating across Hyannis, Barnstable, and the Cape, and beyond. How interesting that in the at least 50 times over the last 10 years that I've driven into that parking lot, I never looked up in that way to see that cupola. If there is one message that I continue to deliver through this time however you make of it good, bad, or otherwise, however you subjectively judge it, it is this. Our work is to stay awake and to look up. And when we are looking up and we are awake, we can see each other. We can see the lyrics if we'd like to sing what's actually on the slide. And I'm not speaking about all of you. I'm speaking about us. We have choices. We have options. But here's how I remember to look up. I first have to source from within. I first have to try to remember, as the old fantastic song says, that kind of September where I remember the good things in my life that connect me with open eyes and open heart. And for me, it's some of those sweet little moments, some of those interesting memories. 3 different people this morning asked me about my car, because I often, when I come to visit, I tell the story of my cars just as a vehicle for talking about my journey in hopes that it's useful, the slightest bit useful. But what's interesting is that the 3 different people all had a different take on what I drive, what moment in time this is, and I thought that's so interesting. I talk enough about my car, but maybe not enough if there were to be a quiz. I don't know if anybody would get it right, which is just interesting in terms of talking about and thinking about how we notice things and the meaning that we make. I will tell you that I keep thinking. I made an understanding inside of myself, a reflection at some point last night when I was thinking about coming down. I am, yes, thinking about another new car. Even though I made a deal with myself, there's really nobody else to make the deal with. I made a deal with myself that I would stick with my Subaru Forester through thick and thin for at least 5 years. This was the deal I made. And I'm cheating on my Forester these days by looking online at the new, not even released yet, Honda Passport Trail Sport 2025 in a brilliant rich orange. And as you know, this orange runs my life. Right, so I thought I'd bring my jacket, right? So, this orange in particular, though, and this car actually is this orange. I don't know Honda knew. I don't know how they knew, but they made a choice, and the choice really speaks to me. Here's why I mention that. I mention that because that orange brings me joy. That color brings me joy. I want you to, each of you, just think for a moment. I'm not even going to ask you to share. God forbid New Englanders are asked to share. I'm not even going to ask you to share. But I want you to think of your favorite color, the color that brings some energy or joy, right? Just for a beat, okay. So that color is given to you for a reason. We all have different frequencies that we operate on. And for me, I don't know, I just keep coming back to that orange. And it wasn't until last night, going to sleep, sort of drifting off, that I realized why. In 1974, I was 9 years old. And my family was getting ready to move from Glenview, Illinois, outside of Chicago, all the way to New England, to Bedford, which is between Lexington and Concord. People know Lexington and Concord. We don't talk a lot about Bedford, but it's in between, just as important. And as we were preparing, we went to buy a new car. I had never experienced this. I was 9 years old. The car was not for me. It was for my mother in particular. And we went at night. I can't believe we actually picked up a car at night, but I guess it worked out that way. And there was snow on the ground. And I remember the level of excitement inside of me for some reason about this new thing that offered hope and promise somehow stuck with me for years and years. Here's what I remember. If I were to go inside of my Wayback Machine, I remember cold, lots of white snow. I remember sitting in the dealership. It felt like it was, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was really late. I was tired. But when the salesperson, and I do remember this, walked us outside to see the car, I just remember the orange against the snow. And my little 9-year-old self was so excited to open that door. I didn't know how to drive. I really didn't even know. We didn't have a lot of cars. We didn't have a ton of cash. This was a big deal. It was an AMC Sportabout. Guess what color? That orange. And I realized that, okay, that was many, 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 many years ago, more than 50, that for those years I have been searching for that level of joy. For that 9-year-old little boy who could get that excited about a color. I remember that it was one of the few times I remember my parents happy together. And there's a reason why these memories stick with us. We are seeking to make meaning. Human beings are meaning-making creatures, and we are constantly moving through our days seeking to make sense of things. I didn't know Syria was going to fall. I didn't have a crystal ball to understand any elections here or anywhere in the world. We are in a time of transition. We are in a time of turmoil. Many, many, many people are hungry and suffering, and millions are on the move. And I believe what that calls for is the ability to source within us these little memories, these moments. Maybe there's a little more orange in your life, or maybe it's blue, or maybe it's chartreuse or magenta. Maybe for you the joy is found just simply in the quiet. Maybe the joy is found walking the labyrinth out in the back. Maybe it's walking the forest, or for many of you I know, walking along the ocean, somewhere in this beautiful community. Whatever it is, I really implore you to remember and to look up and come back to it, to use it as a tool to come back to your heart. Because what is happening these days, for me and for others, is that we are so concerned about maintaining the illusion of control so that our nervous system feels okay about the day. We study the lyrics hard every day, whatever those lyrics are in your life. And we know that unless we are able to just sing through whatever is coming to us and through us, we won't make it. What we did this morning is a beautiful example of what we all need to do, I believe, out in the world, which is essentially to leverage one another, to work with one another. When we forget a lyric, to look to one another and say, hey, I forgot the words to this song. Metaphorically. I forgot the way to work. I forgot what I'm supposed to say. I feel as if I don't have the same script running. And what I want you to understand, because I do speak in front of a lot of congregations, and as many of you know, I work with a lot of different organizations, we're a mess. We're a mess. But we are a holy and sacred mess. We are both hurting and healing. I really want you to hear that. We are both in this moment hurting and healing. And I think that coming back to those moments of joy, those touch points, what it helps us do is to go in, to connect, to look up and see the light in the cupola. Because there are lights in the cupola. They are lit everywhere. Yesterday I was in a place of what felt like darkness and sadness. I did move to a small apartment. My marriage is in transition, which is alone enough to feel as if the ship is leaning and the storm is not only brewing but blowing. And so I was in my little one-bedroom apartment thinking, wow, I'm really lonely. Can I sit with that before I turn on the TV, before I send another email, before I look at another YouTube video for the 2025 Honda Passport Trail Sport in orange? And I did. And I did what I believe God calls each of us to do. I sat in that stillness for a little bit, and tears came. And I went back to my bed and I knelt. And I pray like a little boy, 9 years old. I kneeled down and I clasped my hands together. And I said, God, please show me I'm not alone. Less than 5 minutes later, I got a text. I can't lie to you people. Some people I can't lie. 5 minutes later, I got a text from a woman who is one of my closest friends. She also helps me in my business, and she's a friend from church. That's how we connect. Come to church more often. And she is undergoing chemotherapy. She has a health condition that's a version of a cancer. And inside of that, I haven't reached out to her much. Here's what the text said. Adam, I'm actually in the neighborhood. This is a long shot, but I wonder if you might want to have coffee. I came up on a whim. I borrowed a car, and I had a purpose. I was delivering my grandson to an activity, and then I realized that Beverly is next to Salem, and that I was right down the street. And I saw this, and it had been 20 minutes, right? I looked at the text, and I thought, oh, God, if only. And I raged for 10 seconds, and then I thought, take a breath, Adam. And I texted back. And I said, I don't know if you're still in town, but if you are, I would love to see you. Within 5 minutes, she showed up at my door. Literally the first visitor to my new place. And I was overtaken. She started to thank me for being available and for spending time with her. And I finally had to stop her and say, Deb, I love you, and you have no idea what a gift this is. In this moment, as extroverted and social and out there in the world as I am, I need more reassurance than usual. And I would ask you, do you not? During this time, do you not need more from one another to remember that there is good, that good is always flowing? In New Thought, we truly believe that God is good and great and everywhere always. Good and great and everywhere always. That means that no matter what we see, no matter what is unfolding, no matter the unrest and unknown, we're okay. We really are. And we need each other more than ever. We need each other more than ever. The truth is that unless you are looking up, you miss a lot. You miss moments. You miss those connection points. You miss the giggle that we had spontaneously more than once. You miss the fact that magic is everywhere. This morning, I was staying in my old apartment, and when I woke up early to come down here, I thought, okay, this is okay. I'm back here. This is good. My husband still lives there. And I looked over on the bookshelf that my friend Deb, who I just told you about, had painted for me specially, but that hasn't moved up to Beverly yet. And I saw this ornament. This ornament was on my mother's tree. It is a pink heart for breast cancer awareness, and my mother died of stage 4 cancer, including breast cancer, in 2018. And that's all I needed, was to let God direct my attention to the fact that I'm not alone. None of you are alone. We maintain that concept, that construct, because we have some belief that it is up to us. But we are all together always. And I looked over at it and I thought, I think we're decorating a tree today. And so I'm going to actually leave it, and I know it doesn't match the other balls, Kathy. But this is for my mother, Dory. This is for the woman who drove that orange Sportabout GMC. This is for the woman who drove that orange Sportabout. I love the name of that car. Who drove that Sportabout with 3 kids when she was in transition from her own marriage. And her favorite place to take us was about 5 miles from where I live. She loved Wingashik Beach, which is up on the North Shore. And we would get in that car, and it was so hot. There was no AC. There was an AM radio. This was 1974 and 1975. And when we got there, she would relax, and she could truly be herself, and she would be able to look up, and she could look out and see the ocean, and she could be with her 3 kids, and she could know that she was okay. Whether the ocean reminds you, some ornament on a tree from years ago, a poem, a lyric of Hark the Herald Angels Sing, whatever it is, now more than ever, we need to be sourced and strong to be able to move into action. New Thought teaches us that all is good always, but the final principle truly is faith in action. We talk about moving into the world and doing good. And I will tell you, we can no longer sit in our privilege and lovely, warm space together and not together spend time figuring out what to do. What to do to help each other remember that God is good, God is great, and always and everywhere available. And so I would ask you to take this a little bit more deeply into your experience simply by closing your eyes. Letting your feet settle. Letting your heart calm. Letting the light in. Expanding the heart. Pink and red and magenta and a brilliant burnt orange. Breathing into that now. I invite you just to sit back and listen to another little bit of joy. Nothing to do but to let all of the words and the energy of the music move into and through you now. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at unityonCapeCod.org. This video was made possible in part through a grant from Unity Worldwide Ministries and the Templeton Foundation.